Hey buddies, BTC Gambler here. Guys, girls, ladies and gentlemen. If you're looking at this screen and wondering what the bloody hell this is, please I ask you to go and look at my previous videos. This is platform Alphaverse, and I won't discuss this in this video. I'm assuming you know what this is. If you don't know what it is, please go and look at previous videos. Right, for those that know will know. I've been working on something new that you may be interested in. I stopped running my previous strategy, which was to bet 0 at 99% win chance until it hit 3 losses and just wager. It was good. I made good money, but it was bloody boring. Okay, so I'm trying something new, and one of the ideas that's been floating in my head for quite some time is whether we could use Alphaverse to run a more aggressive strategy where failure is almost expected, and it's about finding a balance. And if that balance could be that we can win more than we lose and add in some more risk, it just makes it a little bit more exciting, and potentially the return is going to be greater. So this is a shift in thinking from me, where before I said very low risk, just play to wager, just get the VIP perks. This strategy I'm working on is a pure profit strategy where you're probably not wagering too much, but you more than make up for it in the profits. Let me explain. Okay, here's the code here. What I've done, I've written a simulation for this code. And I promise you guys, by the time this video is over, I will put this code under community code in my Discord server. And if you're new here, there'll be a pinned message to this video that will have a link to my Discord server. Please come and join us. The BTC Gambler community is for people just like me, just like you. The tinkerers, the mathematicians, the coders, the ones that want to play the casino very, very differently. You play by your rules. You don't play by the casino's rules. It's through novel and innovation that you're going to get one over the casino. Right, let me explain this code here. I recognize that coding is not for anybody, is not for everybody, but I don't want it to daunt you. I do my best to put a description on each of my codes to explain what it does do. So this is the idea as it stands at the moment, and we'll cover this in Excel for the non-coders. So the conceptual idea is to run the game dice, to run it at a 50% win chance, not the 49.5% chance where you get 2x, but 50%. And that's important, because if you don't do that, 1% of your bets will fall either side of that. And it's a stupid idea. This turns it into a true 50-50 game. And then I'm using Martingale, but I'm using what we call delayed Martingale. So in the code, it is betting on dice on a 50% win chance, and it's doing 0 bets. 0 bets until it hits 4 losses in a row, and then it starts Martingale from that stage onwards. The code, I think, does pretty well in explaining that. So we start off with a relatively small balance per bot, and then we have this idea of a centralized recovery part, and that they are calculated numbers. It's explained in the code here. So the base bet is 1/25,000th of your start balance, and the recovery part is 50 times your start balance. So you can play around with these figures. Don't be afraid to play around with those. So I've switched to Excel, which I think will show it in much more detail, and it will explain what I mean, and it will make sense. I always start here. This spreadsheet is called I Want to Be Free, and it's version 5. Again, I will put a link to this spreadsheet. You can download it and play with it, and it'll be in the pinned comment as well. So I put in here what I'm playing with at the moment to test is I've got 10, just a mere 10 TRX start balance, and the base bet, as we can see, is 1/25,000th of the base of the balance, which gives me a base bet of 0.0004 of 1 TRX. It's a tiny amount. But bear in mind we are testing things here. Because we're running at 50% win chance, the win pair is 1.98. Okay, so make sure you've got yours set this way if you're going to play around with this. And that meant that I instead of adding 100% to each loss, I have to add 102.1% to each loss for full recovery. I'm sorry if these numbers bore you, but they're really important. And if we look at those, and this is where it's going to start to get interesting, because we can play with these numbers. And once we have a basis to work from, we can play with the numbers. We can track each bet through, and we can see that on the first 4 bets it's going to do 0 betting, and then on the 5th loss it's going to go in on the base bet and it's going to add 102.1% on each loss subsequently. Now this idea of a recovery pot, so if I put that to 0 for the moment, we can see if we just run that would take us up to 18 losses in a row, and we can cope with that with just a mere 10 start balance. And after 18 losses in a row, it will report a bust, and then we bring in, as an automated method, the recovery pot. And I said the recovery pot is also a calculation, and that is, I'll add that in now, it would be this times 50. Does that make sense? And that would take us up to 24 losses in a row. Any of us experienced enough will know that it's nowhere near enough to run this on certainly a long-term period. You're guaranteed at some point to hit a minus 24. And so this then becomes a race. If the code is written in such a way that as soon as you make 10% of your balance as a profit, it vaults it. So it's constantly vaulting your profits as you go along. And then when you scale this out, and in my instance, I've got 160 bots, averaging around about 2 million bets per hour, can I profit more than it loses? How frequent is it that it's going to go above 24? And we can look at the odds and the probabilities of that. It's 16 million to 1, so it'd be 33 million to 1 chance that it's going to hit 25. I'm saying to you, that's a stop loss limit. And the question is how frequently is that going to come in? Can you run it long enough to make a profit? And secondly, is it worth it? Does it make enough money? Let's go back to Alphaverse and let's do a bit of number crunching, because I have been testing this. And ignore the profit at the moment. I can't tell you what that profit is, but it's way above 500 TRX in one day. 1 day, 10 hours. I've been running this for, testing this for. And you can see that I've done a sizable number of bets. If we look at the number of wins, we look at the number of losses, we're in excess of 3 million bets done so far per bot, and I've got 160 of those. And we can crunch those numbers, and not a single one of these bots has gone over 24 yet. I'm expecting it to, but none haven't done it yet. There's a 33 million to 1 chance that it is going to go above that, and if it does, I'm not going to chase it. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to reset the profit and reset the time so we can start to do some calculations. And if we go back to the spreadsheet, this is where it starts to get a little bit more exciting. In a minute, we'll go back to Alphaverse and we'll crunch some numbers, okay guys? We'll crunch some numbers and we can do some calculation what the expected outcome results, the amount wagered, the amount profit, providing we don't hit an excessive loss streak and we lose one of the recovery pots, we can then do some form of calculation. Just briefly guys, before we move on, please recognize the amount of effort required to produce these videos. All I ask in for return is if you please, I'm begging you, smash that like button. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. It's quite demoralizing to have such a low view count on my videos these days. It's not your fault, it's my fault. I take full responsibility. If there's anything you can do to help, I'd be really appreciative. Leaving a comment means a lot to me as well. I don't want to feel like I'm shouting into an echo chamber. So any feedback, any interaction, if you can share these videos, put them in playlists, whatever you could do, I'm extremely grateful for that. Let's get back to the video. So looking here, I'm testing at this stage, and I'm testing him with just a mere 10 TRX, which is about $3, I think. But because of the way that the calculation is done, we can keep scaling this up. Now let's say, for example, we start up with 40 TRX start balance. The base bet goes up significantly. Going back to the validity checker, we can see the crash point doesn't change. But we can also see the recovery pot is also going up to 2000. So when we collect the metrics from Alphaverse, and I only need 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, and I can do the maths from there onwards, we can then scale that out. So if we went, for example, to 40 TRX start balance with a 2000 TRX recovery pot, we could just take those numbers and times it by 4, because it's literally 4 times the amount. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Right, I'll be back. Okay, just bringing you back. 10 minutes have gone by, and it basically profited 4 TRX in 10 minutes. And if we can put those numbers in Excel, with 160 bots running, if it made 4 TRX in 10 minutes, that means it's going to make 24 TRX in an hour. And over the duration of a day, we expect it to make 576. And over the duration of 1 week, that's 4032 TRX. I've put the exchange rate there, and in a moment I will calculate that, what this means in monetary terms. But fundamentally, what this is telling me is this needs to survive for more than 1 day in order to protect the recovery pot. You would have made back the recovery pot in more than 1 day. So providing this can survive longer than 1 day, one of the key changes I made to the code whilst I was testing was to make sure that when I'm betting, it doesn't change or flip between betting high and betting low. I found it to be so much more stable if you don't change between betting high and betting low. I just bet low and I leave it there. And it just seems to make it harder for the casino. I think if you change between betting high and betting low, you're basically giving the casino better chance to get an excessive loss streak. The same could be said for a win streak, but because the way this code is written, once it gets a win, it will revert back to base bet and it would do 0 betting again. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to take a snapshot of all of the data. So I've been running it for almost 2 days now, and we can look at some of the statistics to see how this is played out. Because what surprised me with this code is how stable it is. You know, what's the worst loss streak I've experienced so far? How many bets have I run? And the final part is, let's extrapolate this out into what monetary values is. And then we could play around with the figures to see what would, if we increase the start balance to 40, for example, which would be 4 times this amount. I think if you're going to run this, you know, I would be looking at around about 40 TRX. So we can 4x these figures. Anyway, let me get the numbers. I'll be back. Okay. I've crunched the numbers. I've added in the exchange rate, and with a mere start balance of just 10 TRX, which is basically $3, we can see if we continue at the rate, the calculation says that we're going to make just over $1,000 per week profit. This does not include rate back, does not include weekly, it does not include monthly. You can add all those on top of it. But what I've done, I've taken all of the data from Alphaverse, extrapolated it and put it in here in Excel, and I've removed all the junk data, and the only bits that we're particularly interested in is the number of busts, how much profit is made, how much has been wagered, how many wins, how many losses, and what the max loss streak is. So I've been running this for 1 day, 10 hours, so 1 and a bit days. And I took out the key data and I put them here, and we could see that I've done in 1 day, 10 hours, 58 million bets. I've profited 718 TRX. Let's go back to that spreadsheet. This is an estimation of 576 a day. So the calculation is pretty much done near on to what the actual real life betting is. So that should fill you with confidence. This is a calculation, this is actual. Very close. Capture the amount that I've wagered as well, but more importantly, what's the max loss streak? We could see we were 2 away from there from busting, so that's not bad going. And if it continues along this pace, this may well be the basis of a very good strategy to run. Instead of running boring strategies where you're just wagering to get the VIP perks, let's go for a profit strategy where failure is expected, but providing you win more than you lose, all good. All good. So on paper, this seems like a very good strategy. But like I said, if you're going to run this in anger, it would be 4 times that amount. Then it starts to become really interesting. Let's add in one more column. I've added in the monthly figure. This becomes seriously interesting. I think there's enough profit here that if somebody wants to take this and run this as a syndicate, I think this would be a good strategy. 18,000 a month. You could afford to lose a couple of recovery pots in that. Right, I'm going to do one more final thing. Bear with me. What I've done, I adjusted the real figures from the statistics that I pulled down and timed it by 4 and then applied a monetary value. So if I had been playing with 40 TRX start balance and I had a 2000 TRX recovery pot, what would my profit be looking like right now after 1 day and 10 hours? And it would be at 2,875. We could see there straight away there would have been enough there to cover the recovery pot, and I would have wagered 16,533. So I'd have made 776 profit and in 1 day 10 hours and 16,500 wagered. Right, I'm going to keep experimenting with this and I will bring you back with an update, and I'll speak to you very soon. Okay, I am back. I've been beavering away here, and what I've done, I've created this code in simulation, and before this video goes live you will find not only this code but the production code as well here under community codes. Reminder, the link to my Discord will be a pinned comment to this video. Let me talk you through this. I've made a few changes. I think you're going to like them. So first off, it's a complete simulation of what the code I'm running is, but it could run it super quick. Like we're going to run it now, and this is like less than 1 second. It's going to simulate a day's worth of running, and I can see it pretty much matches through. It's pretty accurate. How much profit it's made and how much it's wagered, what the largest loss streak was and what the largest bet amount was, and that's really useful stats. So if we just go through the code very, very quickly, probably if you're used to my code, you're going to be familiar with this, but there's a few key variables you could define here. The first one is being debug mode. If you enable that to be true and we run this, you'll find that it runs, you get a lot more detail. It's a lot slower, but it allows you to validate. You can check the results using provably fair, what the client seed, server seed, what the current nonce position is, what the result was, and you can verify that and provably fair. And it keeps a track of everything. You can adjust the bet speed when you're in debug mode. Defaults, well, it's 100 milliseconds, but you can change that to 1000 milliseconds if you wanted to slow it down, which is what we've done there. But you'd only use that for debugging. Realistically, you're going to run it with debug mode set to false, and when we run the exactly same code, it does it in less than 1 second. We could specify what our start balance is, and I'll just put a crazy high figure in there because we're not testing here we're going to crash out. We're just testing what's the worst that's going to happen. Now the key metric that you're probably going to change, if you want to try different balances, for example, if we said that the balance was going to be 40, we could rerun that and we could see what sort of profit it's going to make. Slightly better. We might also want to change the duration it's going to run for. So let's test it what it would look like on 1 week. And all we do is just copy and paste that 1 week figure in there. Rerun it. Takes slightly longer, but you can see Minus 18 was the worst loss streak. And one other final thing here is if you're going to run this as Alphaverse and you want to work out roughly what it's going to make, you can now put in this figure there the number of bots that you're going to be running. So I've got 160 bots, and if I rerun that, you're going to get sort of a figure to work out roughly what it's going to make. So if I ran that, that would have been an amazing 13,258 TRX profit. I'd be very happy with that. We had a minus 20 loss streak. The largest bet place was 114. Let's go back over those again so we're all clear. You can adjust the play balance. The core bet is a calculation from the play balance. As I said in the spreadsheet, when 1/25,000th of the start balance, which in this instance is going to be 40. And the reason we have a difference between the balance and the start balance is because we're simulating as if you've got funds in there for a recovery pot. We didn't need anywhere near 20 million. I was just a number I put in there. You can specify the number of bots you're going to run. You can specify what duration you want to test this period over for, and just play with it. Don't be afraid to change this. You know, this, if you mess it up, you could just re-download it again. The only difference between the version I've got here and the version you're going to see, it will have a link to this video in a description. So once again, I commit this code. I hand it over to you. If you've got any questions, just reach out to me, and I'll speak to you all again very soon.